my beautiful guys and dolls, and welcome to an episode of Before the Curtain. I'm your host, Abbie Campbell, and we are here to discover the passion behind the performance. Artists of all backgrounds will share their stories about what it takes to create, survive, and thrive in the competitive world of entertainment. Finding inspiration in their journeys, we aim to bring you everything that happens before the curtain. Okay, our guest today is near and dear to my heart. She is a completely self-taught performer, having been a singer with the Streetmosphere show at the Venetian and Burlesque Q at Alexis Park. She is co-producer for shows at the House of Monju, and currently is the MC and singer for Le Cabaret Show at the Paris Casino, which, if you've listened to any of our other podcasts, you know how much I rave about this woman. She is also a burlesque artist showcasing her creative skills across the city of Las Vegas. But my friends, I have her here today because, with all her success, she started her performance career in 2020. Yeah, the peak of our worldwide shutdown, she took a chance to pursue what she knew was true to her heart. And if that's not a story to be told, I don't know what is. So without further ado, please help me welcome to the mic, the force to be reckoned with on and off the stage, Miss Zelda Fairfax.
Oh my goodness, I feel so pumped up. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh my God.
Truly.
Absolutely. I adore you, and if the audience doesn't know it, they definitely know it now that I absolutely adore you.
I'm blushing. I think we're flirting. You already know I am just such a massive fan and proponent for what you're doing and how important it is for the community. And so, wow, I feel like I've made it to kind of a special little rank because I've loved listening to everyone else's stories and insights so much. Woo,
I love that.
I'm here.
You are here because you're a badass.
Oh my
so
goodness.
let's get into it. What was that turning point for you in 2020 where you were like, I'm going for it?
Well, of course, it was a very clear turning point, which is I had my last shift at the spa at the MGM Grand as an esthetician. And, you know, there were little whisperings of, oh, maybe shut down. And I did my last facial. I left for the day. And then the next day we were told not to return. I immediately, you know, did the unemployment paperwork, everything that, you know, they tell you to do right off the bat. And then, you know, kind of sat and spiraled and thought, what do I do next? Because the truth is, I never wanted to be an esthetician. It was a very difficult, tearful, not great fit for me for nearly 13 years. And so it was very clear that whatever was going to happen, none of us knew. We were all spiraling anyway, no matter what we did. It felt like this could be a lemons into lemonade moment if I treat this correctly. So if I can figure out how to somehow change my career, I want to do that. But I didn't know what that meant. So I just, you know, maybe a week or two later when it became clear that we were all in our homes indefinitely, I started uploading what I was calling live uncut music videos, where I was creating kind of, you know, beautiful setups in my house and dressing, you know, in a way that I thought matched that setup, and then singing into a microphone live, some cover, any cover, uploading it to YouTube, and all of those videos eventually became something that I could submit to the Venetian because they were looking for stationary gondoliers because the gondoliers were not allowed to sing on the boats anymore because, you know, you could
COVID I'm guessing
somebody.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what opened the door, and everything came from there. But it really, to answer your question, was just I can't go back to the spa. I have to make this an opportunity for myself.
Well, I didn't realize you had done it for 13 years.
Off and on, but yeah, that was kind of my main deal.
So have you always had a desire to pursue performing or wanting to be a performer?
Absolutely. So I I was, an early kind of 6-year-old doing the jazz tap ballet thing. And I remember I did one recital and I was like, this is the big time. I was backstage and all the lights and the older kids and I'm in my costume and I took it so seriously. So seriously that I told my mom, I don't need to learn to read because I'm a dancer now. And she was like, oh, no, we're not doing that. So she pulled me out of dance, which was probably the correct choice at the time. But it inadvertently kind of started a thought process in my young brain. Because I don't know if you've ever heard this, but they say by the age of 7, our subconscious is locked in.
Okay.
So whatever information we received before the age of 7 is our reality. So even if we grow up and that information is outdated, we still subconsciously believe that it's true. So I'm going to make a really stupid example. So you were screaming once in the freezer aisle as a 6-year-old in the grocery store, and your mom was like, don't do that, it's loud. So now you whisper every time you're in the freezer aisle of the grocery store as a 25-year-old. It's outdated information. That doesn't help you with your life anymore, but it's still locked in. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so for me, I think it created this idea that dancing was not for me, performing was not for me, and I think I found a lot of ways to kind of self-sabotage. But really, once I was rounding the end of my high school life, I really did want to go to a music conservatory. I wanted to sing. I wanted to act. And my mom, strong, single mom, was just like, do me a favor. Just get a trade, and then you can do anything you want to do. But the thing is, where is the stopping point? When have you earned the right to do anything you want after you've gotten the trade? So I never was able to find that point where I was allowed to do something as decadent as, maybe going to school, in my 20s for performing or something like that. So I just kind of kept doing skincare.
Because you felt like you got the trade and you were like, well, I might as well use it? Or like...
It's just, that was the practical decision.
Okay.
And performing... especially anywhere other than Vegas, where it's not really a way that you can necessarily pay your bills, it felt like more and more of a lofty idea. And as time went, and you're living this normie kind of muggle existence, and you've started telling yourself that you might not be very good at it because that's your little internal, subconscious reel that's playing in your head all the time, and you haven't gone to school, and so you're pretty green. You just know that you have this deep longing and desire. There's kind of no way out. But there were a lot of days where I would literally be giving someone a facial and just sobbing because I knew it wasn't a fit. And estheticians are, I think I could say this, and any esthetician would not be insulted, but they're very driven individuals. And so in a lot of places, especially here, it's kind of a dog-eat-dog sort of thing. There's a lot of money to be had. There's a lot of competition. Sometimes there can be undercutting. And I would use that information and how it made me feel to say, oh, then you definitely could not be a performer, because if you think this is cutthroat, imagine what it must be like to be a performer. There's just no way.
You're kind of validating your choices.
100%.
Like subconsciously.
Yes.
And within beliefs that weren't ones you created.
Absolutely.
They were given to you. Right.
Well, how often do we hear from people who are on the outside, when are you going to get a real job? Or, I think we've all heard little quips about the lack of practicality in our job. And when you're not surrounded by other creatives, it's really easy to adopt that thought process and go, yeah, dude, you're absolutely right. Let me stick with what I know. Because now, I'm in my 30s. At that point, I'm a full-grown adult, and I have a career, and I should feel so lucky. And, how am I going to step away and, metaphorically join the circus? You know what I mean? So let's just stay in your lane and just cry on people's faces. Not really, but...
You need a tissue? No. I got someone else's face. It's fine.
Serum. It's serum.
It's serum. Oh no.
Never happened. I want to go on record as saying that never happened. I kept the tears to myself.
That's hilarious. But no, it's true. I mean, even now being a full-time performer for years, I still meet people that are like, oh, what do you do? I'm a performer, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, yeah, I used to do a lot of hustle, but then one day I grew up. And I was like,
do you realize how that sounds when you say that to someone who is choosing not to, quote unquote, grow up?
I'm like, well, I'm never going to grow up because I love it.
Yes.
So,
yes.
I'm like, that's your story. That's what you chose. You do you.
That's
as long as you're happy now, that's all that matters. But like, yeah, that can be, isolating when you have no one around you encouraging you or doing the same things as you. And
yes.
Were you always located in Vegas doing this? Like, where were you an esthetician at? Because you said here at MGM, right?
So I was here at that spa for about 3 years. Prior to that, I took a little break from skincare when I moved to the South. So I was living on Amelia Island off the coast of Jacksonville, Florida, but I was still working for our same hotel company that my husband and I moved around with for a lot of years. So I was supervising their retail shops, like 5 of them. And I also lived in Atlanta for a little while. Didn't do skincare there, but I did it for a very long time in Colorado, which is where we're from.
Okay. And then so that same company brought you to Vegas?
No, actually, my husband's decision to join the Air Force brought us to Vegas. And that was 10 years ago. And I remember at the time, my husband, Paul, has always been very critical of my decision to not perform. I'll never forget the day that I signed up for skincare school as an 18-year-old. It was the first real fight we had. He was very angry. He said, "What happened? What happened to your dream?" And he never approved of it. So he said, "Hey, they assigned me to Vegas. This is your sign." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, it's my sign." However, practicality, I'm going to go work in a spa.
I'm absolutely going to cry. That is so cute.
He's magic. He really is magic.
I already loved Paul, and I love Paul even more now. That's amazing.
He's great. He's great. I mean, to the degree that, he just moved back. And the whole reason we lived apart is because he said, "Hey, I don't have a choice. Air Force is moving me to Arizona, but you're not stopping. Like, you're on fire. You're making things happen. I need to come back to something established. And for once, you're going to be the one that had the thing going." Because, before this, most of our moves were to do with his job, not necessarily just Air Force, but also in hotel management. And so this was the first time he was like, we're gonna do these 3 years apart because you need to stay here and you need to keep cooking, baby.
Aww.
He's good. He's a good one.
So then you moved here and just went straight to skincare because obviously practicality. Okay. So then you said 10 years ago. So that was 2015?
2015 we moved here. Yes.
Okay. And then stayed with it, and then COVID hit, and then, okay.
And then,
And had you thought about it throughout that time living here, like as you were in skincare? Were you like trying to dip your toe in at all?
I went to one esthetician for a show. See, now I'm thinking all about, I'm reverting back. Crap, this might be a bad sign. Maybe I'm headed back. I'm kidding. I did audition for one show on the Strip during my life as an esthetician. And I was completely unprepared, fish out of water, did everything wrong. So, one thing that I now know that is very different from maybe LA or New York, as I understand it, is, in those places you show up kind of more clean-faced-ish, black form-fitted clothing. I just went on an assumption that that's what you should do. And I showed up and everybody was just like glammed out looked incredible, like they were already ready for a stage. And so, right away I was like, okay, I don't think I'm doing this right. And I went in and I did whatever I did in whatever probably nervous, green, cringy way that I did it. And then the gentleman that was an auditor, I don't know, the person the person who's watching your audition and making the decisions. Like
the casting director.
That's what I wanted.
Okay.
Look at this. I'm doing great. So
Teamwork.
He said something that I still can't remember that was very ambiguous. That was like, thank you. Something else was said that was so, I probably blocked it out, but it was so unclear about whether I should stick around for a dance call or not that I had to go out and ask the monitor. Is that the term?
Yeah. Okay.
I had to ask the monitor, hey, I'm not sure if I should stay or go. And she said, well, what did he say? And I told her whatever the thing was. And she actually was like, I don't know what that means either. Hold on. So she went back there before he started the next person's audition and asked him. And she came back to me and said, he said it'll be a no today. And I remember leaving and saying, you're okay, you're okay, you're okay. And I walked through the bushes and through the rocks in my dance shoes to my car. Just, we're walking through trees and bushes now. I'm leaving. I'm going into the forest and I'm not returning. So that was my one moment of, or attempt rather, as a Muggle to enter this world.
And did that, I mean, it sounds like it got you down a little bit, but
Very
did that,
much so.
like, did you think, like, oh, I'm just not doing it anymore?
Yeah, I think that it strengthened whatever narrative was in my head, that this probably was not for me. I wasn't cut out for it. I probably didn't have, the balls for it, the talent for it. Yes. So I stayed away.
So then fast forward, it's COVID, you're making these videos and you submitted for the Venetian and it worked out?
It worked out.
First time
try? Yeah. And I think hindsight, probably it worked because it was an uncertain world and I had bills to pay. And so when I went into that audition for Best Agency, I knew that I needed the job. And I wanted the job because it felt very performer adjacent. And so I went in and sang like I needed to pay my bills. And I think that changes something too, is, when you need to do a good job, not just like, oh, I hope they like me, but like, I need this job. So belt it out, baby. Yes. And then that snowballed. So, that job was being eliminated. So I was like, I better learn to row the boats. And in order to row the boats, you have to jump into the canal and you have to get yourself back in. And they're timing you. You have to be able to do it in a certain amount of time. And there's no bottom to the canal outside. So it's very easy. They call it like shrimping. Your body shrimps underneath the gondola. And so the trick is to try and hoist yourself up before your full weight of your body kind of goes like this underneath the gondola, like your whole bottom half. So same thought process. You don't have a job if you don't figure out how to get yourself back into this boat. And so everyone cracks their ribs sometimes, bruises back here, whatever it takes, you get that job, baby. So then that became the Streetmosphere show at the Venetian, where I met, amazing people that were able to help me get an opportunity in Burlesque Q. And then Burlesque Q really ultimately led to like Cabaret.
Wow.
All just kind of rolling together.
Wow. What interesting. So I've never heard, and of course this is obviously from the dancer's side or more, that we hear a lot that casting directors and the panel can smell desperation. Ooh, so if you go into the audition and dance like you need the job and you're like really, really desperate, they can like sniff that out and they can see that.
That totally
and it
makes sense.
And it makes you look Two, it makes you look young, right? And I say young because it deafens your confidence. It makes it, it diminishes it a little bit because you're so like, oh my God, I need it, I need it, I need it. Instead of like, I know what I'm doing, I know who I am. You either want it or you don't.
Yes.
You know, so it's interesting to hear that from your perspective coming into the world. That's what kind of got you into the audition.
Yeah, you know, maybe I didn't convey that. Maybe I conveyed a false sense of confidence because I was like, I need this job. Maybe that's what it was. Versus like, oh, please like me.
But it's interesting. Everybody has a different experience about how they approach either auditions or how their game plan on what to do whenever they're going in, mindset and everything. So that's very interesting.
I guess, you know, I will say I've never been lucky enough to just like cold book something, if you will, from an audition, partly because I'm not, I mean, everyone says they're not a great auditioner, but I am a truly unfortunate auditioner. Just like, what in the hell was that, you know, kind of flavor. But so I guess I what I'm saying is I haven't had so many opportunities to feel out, you know, am I coming across as desperate? Am I coming across as confident? Because I've been so fortunate in being able to really just audition really once or maybe twice or 3 times out of formality for any of the things that I have had the fortune to do. So now I want to experiment with that. Maybe I'll just start showing up to stuff.
Yeah, I mean,
try to be desperate and not desperate and see what happens.
Yeah,
and I'll write a paper about it.
Right? Why not? I mean, what do you have to lose? They're either going to say no or they're going to offer you a job and you're going to say, oh, I can't take it. Or, yeah, I'd love to take it, you know, or what do you have to lose? Dancers always say it's a free dance class at the end of the day.
That's it. That's such a good mindset. That has never, there's never been a mental trick once that has made me not want to crap myself. But that's healthy. And I think that's something that dancers have the best mindset about specifically is, in general, I feel like I've learned so many life lessons and career lessons from dancers because you got to show up. You got to do the thing. Sometimes individuality is not part of the bag, but that's also kind of a blessing sometimes because it lets you just kind of have some freedom. But also, like, hey, it's free dance class. I got to learn a cool combo today. Psh.
Burn some calories.
Yeah.
Smiled. Got to dance around. And
yeah, there'll be another one. It's fine. It's fine.
I love that you just said you learned so much from dancers. Yes.
I really have. No, I really, like, I feel like I've got now 1 million fairy godmother dancers that have taught me everything. Really everything. When I really think about it, and maybe this is not kind to say, but I've learned a small amount from singers, but so much more from dancers because you have to be practical. You have to be grounded. You have to stand in your individuality and what makes you special, but also recognize when you have to be part of the pack or when something is just not going to go your way, whether you like it or not. And I think singers, because it is more of kind of an individualistic, maybe this isn't fair to say, but like ego driven, you know.
Well, typically like as a singer, you know, at least like now, not all gigs, right? We're not speaking for all gigs, but a lot of the gigs, and maybe more specifically in Vegas, when you're hired as a singer, unless you're in a band, at least from what I'm aware of, or what I've seen. Again, I may not have seen it all, totally willing to admit that, but you're hired for you to sing your solo part on this song, and this song, and we're hiring you for your look, for how you sing this song in particular, for what, you know, everything you bring to the table for this production in particular. So you're hired solo.
Yes. Yeah. And I think that's true. There are ensemble opportunities, which is really great. And I should say, I haven't met a lot of really egotistical singers in this town. I really haven't. But I think the very nature of it is such that, yeah, you're right. It is very holistic. It is your look, your vibe. Very often there's that MC component. And then, of course, there's the way that you sing. You're dressing yourself a lot of the time. So, yeah, it's very easy to not think in a pack mentality or get really obsessive about the things that don't go your way.
Right.
Versus, dancers are like, hey, cool.
Is what it is.
And there's also the lessons like, hey, what are you doing with your feet? That I kind of owe everything to. As someone who's not been trained to dance but does have to move on stage, very fortunately or unfortunately sometimes, I owe so much to dancers letting me know that I look like a clown. In the most gentle ways and funny ways.
Hey, you're on time. You're on beat. Awesome. We love that for you, but we're going to face this way instead, babes.
Great. Okay. So not the left, the right. Or how long? It's whenever you've given me a note at Lake Cab that I'm like, how long was I doing? And I thought I was killing it. Far more often than I'd like to admit. I'm like, wow, I read that video totally wrong, because I'm just staring at screens just like we all do, tiny screens, trying to figure out what everyone's doing and trying to mimic that thing. And when you don't have the dance vocabulary for it, you do some weird stuff.
Okay, so when did singing come into have you always just sang on your own? Or did you ever train singing? Because you're a fabulous singer.
Thank you. I have had some spotty little training here and there. I think I just kind of thought everybody could sing growing up, and so I didn't find it very interesting. And so when my friends in middle school were all signing up for music class, and you could choose choir, band, orchestra, I chose band. I chose the clarinet. And not only was I the last chair, but also I was so terrible that the band teacher was like, do me a favor at the recital, pretend to play. Don't really play. I just didn't have the knack for it. And it was some friends that took choir not years later, I guess a couple years later, by 8th grade year, they were like, you should just join choir with us. What are you doing? I was like, yeah, okay, let's do it. And that was fun. So then I continued to be in choir and, advanced choirs, and took little, trips to New York for vocal jazz groups and stuff like that in high school. And I had a teacher that was probably fed into a lot of the reasons why it took me so long to perform, because she was pretty emotionally abusive. She had power over students and she liked to wield it. And she, at one point, told me, your lack of confidence is going to slit your own throat. You're not going to be able to do anything. And that quote stuck with me, and it seemed more like prophecy to me. Like, okay, it's a given. No, that makes sense. I do have a lack of confidence, and it probably will cause me to never do anything. So, yeah, okay, I took some vocal lessons here and there when I thought maybe I could get out of skincare and, have this pipe dream, quote unquote, in my adult life. But it just, I guess I never, even to this day, I think I'm a very lazy singer.
Okay.
What do you mean? I think I listen to a lot of amazing vocalists in this town talk about their passion for, vocal technique, and, listen to this singer. Oh my gosh, isn't this amazing? Listen to this Broadway performer. Listen to how she can do this. And it's so fun to listen to them geek out like that. But I think from a technical standpoint, I don't have a large vocabulary.
Okay.
So for me, I think singing is more of a vehicle to get creative ideas out there.
And I was going to say, and I am going to say, that I am not going to dog on anybody in the city because I only have come across a few singers, only come across, seeing a few. And I do not know all of them. But you have this way on stage that is also like you do so much. Like I say that because of how much you're performing behind the notes. And not just like how you're singing it, but like what you're physically doing, how you're physically connecting with the audience, what you're singing and how you're portraying that through your energy, through your physicality, through where you're at in the room. So, like, not all singers have that. Of course, there's a lot that do. I could name a few offhand as well.
Me too. Yeah.
But you bring such character to what you sing and when you sing it and depending on where you're at. And I think that's what stands out most about you is that it's not, yes, it's Zelda singing, but you also bring like, it feels like you bring another person into it, if that makes sense. Like you've written an entire script that is singing the song and you've become this other person, other energy to relay this message, to relay this vibe. I don't know if that makes sense.
No, it's
almost like
validating.
It's almost like you're stepping into another, like you're literally, when you put on your heels before the show, you are stepping into that entirety of the essence.
That is so validating. No, you hit the nail on the head, and I thank you so much for that. I feel very seen that you even recognize that, because there's a few things that play into that I've been really mulling over, in terms of like, why do I not want some of the opportunities that some of the other really incredible singers in this town that I admire so much want? Why don't I want the same things? What is it that I'm striving for? And also, I there's another component to that too that I'll get into, but I think one thing that I've really been able to identify when I actually slowed down, because the first few years that I was doing this, I was just like, yes. Someone mentions an opportunity, yeah, I want to try for it. Oh, this is an audition, yeah, I want to go for it, because I want all of the same things that, sort of are like the cool opportunities to have. I want to step the ladder of all the greats, all the great singers in this town. I want to do all the things that they're doing. But when I actually like stepped back, realized I was burnt out, realized I wasn't really having fun pursuing these things, I realized maybe they're not for me. And so one thing I realized is like I know a lot of really incredible like lounge singers, and they are phenomenal at fronting a band and singing covers that we all know and love, but in a way that feels really fresh, and like you're very excited to hear their rendition. And, they're great at leading the band and, speaking on the mic and set lists and booking their gigs and stuff. And I have tried it multiple times. It's not for me. And I think I finally was honest with myself and realized I'm happiest, kind of back to the singing as a vehicle thing, in a production atmosphere where there's already a feeling, there's already a vibe, and I can assist, and I'm not the only one working towards that vibe. We're working as a team to make everyone in the audience feel something, and that's my sweet spot. And so I think I do think about that on stage, but I also think there's a lot of pent up years of not doing it in me. So I am a lot, and to the degree that I have a hard time watching myself. We all have a hard time watching ourselves. Nobody wants to watch themselves. Oh yeah. But I think what really is a struggle for me watching footage is like, oh my God, calm down. You don't look seasoned, because every part of me, every single fiber is just like, you are going to exhaust yourself tonight trying to do this thing. And in my head, I'm like, yeah. When you're like, yeah. And then you watch yourself and you're like, oh, Lord. That could have been dialed back, and it probably would have looked cleaner and better. But one thing that I did do when I was in the skincare field is I did model wedding dresses. And so twice a year, we would have a runway show. And I was like like the can of biscuits And if you're like the kind that you have to unroll.
Like yeah.
I always say I'm like a can of pop biscuits, because it was like every 6 months, if you don't undo that thing carefully, it pops. Do you know what I'm talking about? Like it pops before you're ready for it to. And that's what I was acting like on stage. So every single one of those wedding dresses was like a friggin' salsa dancing dress, or like flamenco, whipping it around to the degree that one of the designers was like, we don't want her to wear our dresses anymore because nobody asked for this. But I was like, I'm performing and I have all this pent up stuff in me. And so to some degree, I think a lot of what happens on stage is still like, yes, I'm here, I'm excited, you know, I do this for a living, let's go, you know, I have to be the most. And there's no seasoned, there's no jaded, there's no another night at work that sometimes can serve you. So it's just a lot all of the time. I'm just too excited. I'm so excited. I'm so stoked. Freaking pumped.
But see, I get that. I get it. I love it, and I'm here for it. But also, and I don't see you every night at Paris all the time, sadly. But even on the nights that I have, I'm never like, oh, she's way too much, or like, oh, that was way too much.
Good to hear.
Because you might feel that way, but it's not, because you also do it wisely.
Okay, that's good to know. Mm-hmm. That's good to know.
So, because I could talk about this for another 2 hours, and if no one knows what we're talking about, go see Le Cabaret at the Paris Hotel and Casino every Friday and Saturday night, 8 p.m., 9 p.m., 10, 11, and 12.
Yes.
Go see them. Go support Zelda. Go support the girls. I'm also in that show. Mm-hmm. Anyway, sorry, side note, little plug there. I want to ask how burlesque came into it, because I'm gonna tie this all back into burlesque here soon.
Okay.
How did you start as a burlesque performer?
I first performed burlesque in, I want to say 2009, maybe once, maybe twice.
Oh.
In Colorado, and maybe once more a few years later. And ultimately, at that point, lol, I thought, oh, everybody's doing this. It's too popular.
Is there a big burlesque scene in Colorado?
There is.
Really?
Yes.
Oh.
Yes. In fact, my burlesque mother, you know, whoever started you in your burlesque world is your burlesque mother. She and her wife run the Colorado Burlesque Festival, which has garnered an incredible following, because they do some really great stuff in terms of making sure that they book LGBTQ, minorities. That comes first, and then, you know, so they really make a point to lift up these communities, and that's really special. But at the time, it was becoming very chic to do burlesque. So I was like, I'm not doing this. If I had any idea what it would be now, man, I wish I'd continued, because that was not anything compared to how popular and mainstream burlesque is now around the world. So I did not continue, but I had the opportunity to become a swing for Burlesque Q. And so I was allowed to create an act, a singing act, within the parameters of what our producer, Carrie, wanted. And that kind of just led to more. And then I started creating my own acts.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Because I've seen you do burlesque once live.
Yes.
I believe it's just been once.
Yeah.
But even still, that same kind of thing I was talking about with you singing is the same thing you do as a burlesque performer. And I mean, any performer, right? Like, whenever we perform on stage, we're not always like, who I am on stage is not necessarily my personality off stage.
Yeah.
But there's just, and I don't know how else to describe it, just a certain essence that you step into that also, my main point about saying all of these things about you is that you can't teach that.
Thank you.
You can't teach that.
Thank you.
I can tell you all day, oh, the vibe is a little more low key, a little more sexy, and like you have to know how to step into that.
You're right.
Sometimes, and I'm not talking about any like performers here, but
Sure.
I mean, I've seen it like with the kids that I teach at the dance studio and stuff like
Definitely.
that. And it's like, okay, I understand that you really just love this dance, but the energy you're giving me for this does not go along with what the goal is for the audience to be feeling.
Yes.
Or for the judges to be seeing in terms of teaching my competition kids. So that's like, you can tell somebody all day, but that they have to like make that choice and understand it. But you can't teach an it factor.
You're right. Because I think we've all kind of seen what the difference is, and it is a almost like an innate sixth sense that some performers have, and others maybe you can't quite put your finger on it because they're almost there, but that innate something, that je ne sais quoi, just isn't there. And it takes a minute for me sometimes, partly because I think everybody that I watch is the most incredible thing on the planet. So, if I was a judge on a competition show, everybody would get through. I'm enamored by everybody, but I do find myself going, okay, what is off? Something, technically everything is perfect, but something is missing. And that's something that you have too. And I think that's something that I immediately earmarked of just like, oh my God, all of you is in it. You understand the assignment, you understand the context of why you're there. And it's hard to put into words, but it is so much more than the technical aspects.
I just thought of a image to like kind of describe it. It's almost like if you put somebody on stage, they don't need a spotlight, they become the spotlight. Like that's to me is like an it factor.
Ooh, yes. Yeah, because it is like a glowing within thing, and whoever that one is, you cannot stop looking at them.
So that's why it's so like what's incredible to me is that like what your performing skills had I say dormant for so long, yet as soon as you started, it's just so natural to me. And that's why it's unfortunate that you weren't surrounded by people who encouraged you, but it's also so amazing that as soon as you started, it took off, and I'm gonna assume here that it probably felt like home.
Yes, absolutely. I got lucky because I kind of squeaked in at the starting line with everyone. I feel like kind of a good metaphor is like I just kind of, hunkered in and just kind of like slipped in between maybe two people's armpits. And, as soon as COVID said we could, I was just like, yep, always been here. Because everyone, it doesn't matter how incredible, your career was for the most part, prior to COVID, how amazing your career was. Pretty much everyone was back at ground zero and trying to figure things out. So, but I was not prepared to meet my family. And truly, like, I owe absolutely everything to our incredible community, because not only is everyone so willing to help and give you insight and tips and warmth when you need it, but also it's everybody's vulnerability that really changed my life, to be honest, because we all have the same insecurities, and we can all take care of each other in a way that our families probably can't even, because how often do we all hear like, oh, how fun is your job? Your job is so fun and glamorous. And not always. And also, at the end of the day, it is a job, and there are so many challenges. And yes, my gosh, we always recognize how lucky we are. But by the same token, it is a job, and it is exhausting, and the hustle is real. The burnout is real. And only the members of our community can really understand, especially in this town, what it looks like and what it feels like. And you can finally, get just a brief heart-to-heart with any person who on paper has an incredibly impressive resume, and maybe you're a little bit intimidated to go talk to them. But if you really get talking to them, they feel the exact same way you do. And that was a real big moment for me of like, oh, you also don't know what's coming next for you if XYZ thing closes. Oh, you also deal with jealousy sometimes, or insecurity, you know, in the face of, you know, someone else that you find to be really impressive, that you know, you worry if you stack up to them, or whatever it is. It's these are universal things, and we can go there. Nobody is so big in this town that they can't go there and be real.
And this goes back to what we were talking about before I press record, that you just gotta ask and you just gotta go for it. You just gotta submit to see what happens. The worst thing that happened is that they're gonna say no, or they're gonna say, you know, we already booked this gig, but we love you and we'll keep you on file.
That's
like,
it.
all you did was submit your video to Best Agency, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then they were like, yeah, come in for an audition.
Yeah.
Like, it's, like, that's it. And all it is asking questions and learning from your peers. And that's also cool, because everybody sometimes can, too, be really intimidated by feeling like they don't know.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know how to be on a gig, so I can't go get one. Well, have you asked anybody? Do you know anybody? Go to a show or a intimate lounge where you know there's a band or a singer, because there's a lot in this town. And after the show or in the middle of the break, hey, I know you're going on your break. I would love to ask you questions about, I don't know, how you became a singer and what your experience is like. Do you have any time? But I'm happy to buy you lunch.
Also, your approach, the way that you just said that right there is make or break, though. Because I think it's important to state that you can ask as many questions as you want to ask, and you can put yourself out there, but the way in which you do it matters, especially in this town. Because I've seen some careers, and I'm sure you have too, I've seen some careers really shortened by people who did not read the room, so to speak, in terms of the way that our community works. So this seems like it might be one of the only cities in the world where we have a thriving performing arts community that does not tolerate bad attitudes, egos. If you do not walk into a rehearsal space or a green room and add to the environment, help your fellow man, lead with humility and warmth, and take constructive criticism and notes well and apply them, you know, all of these things, it really is word of mouth. I mean, so many of the opportunities you get in this town are word of mouth or asking. But if you ask in such a way, and I'm sure you've seen this too, if you ask in such a way that's like, hey, I belong where you are, or just some sort of like air of entitlement when you're approaching people, that doesn't go well. But you're saying like, hey, leading with, this is what you're doing so well, and I really admire you, and that's why I want to ask you questions. Can I buy you lunch? Is, oh my gosh, right away, doors are open. Let's talk. Let's talk.
Or even, can you point me in the right resource?
Boom. Not putting it all on you if you're so busy.
Yeah.
But maybe this tiny thing you might be able to help me with, because I really admire what you're doing.
You never know what could happen. You never know who you could meet, who they can point you to, and what can start just because you asked a question.
Yes.
And like I also like how you got into the performing world, because you didn't do it as in like, oh, I guess I'm just gonna try it. You were like, I see this opening, I need a job, and I'm going for it. And it doesn't sound like you had a lot of hesitation going into that. Did you? I'm gonna tie it back, I promise.
Well, I think I probably had, some narrative in my head that we all have. What are you thinking? Are you crazy? But conversely to how dancers, are taught to think in an audition, I needed the job, and so the desperation was there, and so I was going to fake it till I made it. Period.
But then from there, I mean, you met other singers, you met other performers, and I'm sure you've asked questions.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh, people have incredible resumes in this town. They can teach you so much, and especially as someone who doesn't have any formal training. I didn't go to school, and I get my ego checked constantly because, you know, we all want to feel that we are the most special individual snowflakes in the world, and we are. But at the end of the day, sometimes you are not the only one doing the thing. Someone will come along and maybe swipe your spot, or do what you're doing but better, or, you know, whatever it is. And, you know, the little gremlin you is like, right? But I think this community especially has taught me that check it. Like, it's a business. You are offering a product, and it's either of use or it's not. That has no bearing on who you are as an individual. You do have a life outside of performing. I don't even remember how we got here. Sorry. And now you're trying to tie it back, and I don't remember how we got here. We're doing great.
It's okay. My tie back was like, so somebody who has never, who's only ever seen little bits and pieces of performing can just submit a video, get an audition, start asking questions, and become a full-blown performer. What does that say for people who are already in the entertainment world, where they can go from there? If someone, you know, like your story can do that.
Where do they go in terms of, like, how can that inspire them, or what does that mean for them if everybody is coming for their job because they're leaving their day jobs?
Well, but it's just like, I don't know, even like as a dancer, I remember whenever I first moved here, and I was like, oh my gosh, how am I going to get in with people? How am I going to get in with these companies who already have the dancers that they book, who already do this and already do that? You know, I got in my head about, well, I'm not going to be able to infiltrate them. And I say infiltrate, like, you know, join the group, join the community, you know? Yeah. So it's just like, if somebody who has very little bits of knowledge about how to get involved. Like, if I would have known that years ago, my mindset into the community and into the entertainment world would have been easier, you know?
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think it's important to, what am I trying to say? I think we all have a tendency to cast ourselves before everyone has a chance to. And that's something I still struggle with. We typecast ourselves out. We decide why we shouldn't show up to the call or whatever, based on what we think they're thinking. And I think we have to get out of that mindset. And also, I know a lot of us who are in here are very curious about other industries that are adjacent, right? So I think right there, right away, it's if we can step away from what we know, which I think a lot of us need to do because burnout is real, get curious about something else, put any pride aside at being the new guy, you know, and be okay with asking questions. Like you've said, we have the opportunity to get even better. We're already there. What else can we do? Where are we not pushing? Because it is easy to stagnate. It is easy to rest on your laurels because things are going well. This is what I'm known for, whatever. But what have you not pursued that you could? If someone can indeed completely, change industries and just come in with the right approach and create a career for themselves. Yeah, what can that mean for anyone else who's already here but maybe wants to stretch a little bit further?
Exactly. I have a question, because I could also go on that topic forever. What is the most surprising thing you've learned about the entertainment world since you started?
It's definitely the I'm going to call it the sisterhood in the most, it doesn't matter how you identify way ever. There's a sisterhood. There's I've never felt so cared about and looked after beyond just the stage. Like I've always been kind of a lone wolf. I've never really had girlfriends, definitely never did, like college or sorority or, I've never been a bridesmaid or, anything that would make me prepared for the sisterhood and warmth that I feel in this community now. You meet the most beautiful, amazing people that are just so incredibly real. You know, the them that people see on stage, you know, just perfect and beautiful. And the audience is probably imagining that that's just who they are. They always look glamorous and wonderful. But we are so real. We are so real. You know, I mean, in terms of like, hey guys, I'm filled with gas today, so I am so sorry in advance. It's just, it's so real. And that's like the light side. But the deeper side is like, hey, I'm really struggling today, and here's why. You are suddenly being embraced by every person in the room. And that's incredible. I never dreamt that I would need or rely emotionally on others as much as I do. It's a family. It's a family. Mm-hmm. It's beautiful.
Mm-hmm. It's a chosen family for sure.
Yeah.
But I was thinking, you can't pursue what is true and authentic to your heart without being true and authentic.
Yes. Yeah.
I think I don't know how you could.
I think that's true. And I think the way you say it is like, yeah, it's a given. You know what I mean? But it's totally revolutionary to me. You know, nobody is concerned with coming off as this perfect, wonderful, poised person that's, you know, in my old industry, it was very, if you made a mistake, it was swept under the rug. You could approach someone and be like, you did this. No, I did not. I'm perfect in every way. Not in the performing industry. At least not in my experience. Not here in this town. It's, yeah. I messed up. Sorry, I was not where I was supposed to be.
Well, it was just a rough night, guys. I was just off.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. It's so real. And it doesn't diminish anybody's talent. In fact, it makes them more incredible and more lovable. Mm-hmm. When have you ever met so many beautiful, insanely talented people that are just very honest about what they're feeling, what they're experiencing, the dumb, hilarious stuff? It's just, it's real. Mm-hmm. It's real life. It's like 3D in your face. You are living. That's the weirdest but best way I can put it.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it that kind of ties back in my brain to what we mentioned earlier about, like, whenever you approach somebody to ask a question, or if you're trying to do more and you're coming at it, you know, you don't want to come at it as in like a prideful way, or like, you know, I don't know, I deserve to be your assistant, right? Yeah. You're coming at it and like, hey, I would love and I'm interested. So you're coming at it from that open-armed, you know, willing to do the work place. And the owner of my school, shout out Don Maralt, always said, like, the best way to describe working in this industry, happy to be here, ready to work.
Beautiful.
And like,
beautiful.
But that also, yes, on the job, but also in the dressing room. I'm happy to be here. Yes, I'm ready to work whenever it's time for the show, and obviously to warm up, get ready, all the things. But also, like, I'm happy to be here with you.
That's it. That's a nice little add-on to that. Because that makes everybody feel good, because at the end of the day, we are all sensitive artists. And so we have the ability to make or break one another back there. And that will make or break the show. If someone is being a shithead, is my language, it ruins everything. It will impact the show ultimately. And so we have to take the very best care of each other. Like it's a job hazard not to, in a way.
Yeah, it's vital. Yeah. And if you're not getting along with somebody or something's come up, like, let's get through it. Yeah. Like we're all in the boat together.
That's
okay?
It,
we
man.
are all rowing. We all got an oar, okay?
That's
and we're all just trying to make it to shore.
Yeah, we're like an Olympic rowing team. I don't know anything about that, so I don't know if that's true.
There is something I really want to say, and also if you want me to, I can cut this out of the podcast. But just from my experience and perspective, hearing your story makes so much sense, and hearing like how you grew up. Because whenever we first met was in rehearsals for Lake Cabaret.
Yes.
And I remember you being so nervous to like do the dances and know everything and stuff.
Oh,
and
so
like,
nervous.
You were so nervous, and I also remember seeing you in rehearsals and hearing you sing, and I was like, why the hell is this girl nervous?
Aww.
I'm like, she's great. What is happening? But then we were so busy, it's not like we got to talk much until it came to that point where you were either swinging in and then stepping into the full-time role. And I just always remember being like, Zelda, get out there, pull people into the lounge.
That was
like I was like, come on.
That was life changing.
And I just was always so confused. Why is this girl nervous? Why is this girl like? Does she own a mirror? Do I need to go buy her a mirror so she can see what I see here?
That is so sweet.
And I truly do. And I was just like, what is happening? Because you're a rock star, and that's why I always just like kept like bugging you about it.
You were instrumental in making me feel like I had permission to just do whatever. You really like truly you gave me permission to get out of that shell. But anytime you're in rehearsal and you're the swing, and so you really want to try to measure up to someone like Laura, and stepping into those shoes is always really hard. But also to even be allowed to swing into a show of that caliber felt like you get so in your head.
And I can only imagine now hearing your story and like thinking about that because like Laura, bless her, love her, trying to get her on the podcast.
Incredible.
She's got a resume that's like longer than the Harry Potter books at this point.
And she can walk into any situation, just be like, "Give me that microphone, hey everybody," and then scream her head off. And it's just she's amazing. She does her own shows on cruise ships all the time. Like she is incredible, and I can only imagine being. I'm going to use the word brand new, but newer into the entertainment world, because we opened in 2023. This was 2023, almost 2 years ago now. Wow.
You only having that early 3 years of experience, still learning different tricks of the trade, still learning processes. I completely understand why you were there, or why.
Oh, yeah.
I completely get it.
I
would shit myself.
I was every day. I'm like, I cannot believe. And really, I mean, shout out to Tanya. This would not have been possible because
we love you, Tanya.
We love you, Tanya. But, if it hadn't been for me swinging onto Burlesque Q, she wouldn't have tapped me for this. And so, I just, as soon as we knew that this was not just a gig, because I know I was certainly under the impression that I was swinging for like a quick gig.
Yeah, we were all, I mean, I think at first it was like we were just testing the waters to see how it would go, how the show would run, what it would look like in the lounge and everything.
Yes. So I think I thought maybe, from my perspective, it was a few-day thing, and I thought, why do they need to swing for that? Didn't think further about it. But then as soon as it was clear to me what space we were going into, how iconic that is, and then, okay, not for nothing, but I had just done a chime candle. It was a Success, yellow is success, I think, chime candle that a witchy friend had given me years ago. And I had just done that. And I really spent the whole time that candle was burning manifesting some sort of European cabaret experience for myself, because I had just gone out to New York to do one quick overnight audition, and that was so beautiful to me. And I thought, if there could just be something like that in Vegas, that's what I'm going to concentrate on. And so I listened to music that I thought was, kind of indicative of that. The next week was when I submitted like a little soundbite for Jamie. And then it was, several months later. But like all of those things combined, when this finally was happening, and we knew like, oh my gosh, wait, no, this has the opportunity to be big. Holy cow, really can't mess this up. I don't know. Can I do this? Because especially as the person on the microphone, there is a responsibility to give context to what everyone is seeing. You know what I mean? I have a responsibility to you guys, the dancers, to explain what's happening. Be your voice. Be the voice for just context, really. And it's a huge responsibility. You've got to endear everybody. You've got to bring everyone in. Huge pressure, huge responsibility. Can I do it? I don't know. But you gave me permission to, like, get weird if you have to. And that was huge. Like, okay.
And let me tell you, at least this last weekend, and I say this last weekend, by the time this episode come out, it'll be a month from now, but I just remember sitting there and I was like, oh, I fucking love Zelda. You just make me laugh. And I think it was during Roxanne where you like, I don't know if you guys know this song, but I wrote it. And I just started laughing. And I was like, yeah, you did. Yeah, you did, Zelda.
I did. I wrote it myself years ago, and I'm a millionaire. But I think when I realized you don't have to take on a persona. That also took me a while to realize, like, you don't have to take on a persona. You can be exactly who, like, we're being right now on the microphone. And I've seen you do that. Oh. And I think that's also your bread and butter. It's just like, you're already a character. You're already funny enough. And if you just say what's on your mind, that's actually acceptable. And I think in the beginning, I thought I needed to be clever and have quips and seem like a, cabaret MC or, no, you can just.
Because didn't we try to come up with some, like, at least a few things to say that were nice and witty or something like that?
Yeah. I think we did.
Yeah.
But ultimately,
and
people just want to feel like they're part of it. So if someone's giving you something, guess what? You're the show now, dude.
Yep, you are in the show. And everybody wants to be involved, always. Yeah. Everybody always wants to be involved in the show. But also, like, the MC and the singer of a show, or just the MC, 'cause sometimes, not always, but, like, you are sometimes that human connection that people need to feel involved in the show. When you create those one-on-one interactions or, anything like that. That makes people feel so much more invited to come in and sit down and watch. Because, like, when it comes to a show like that, having an MC is very different from, like, a go-go box. If you're just dancing on a go-go box, sometimes people feel like you're just, like, caged, like a caged animal. Yeah. And I don't mean that in, like, a mean way, but I mean that in, like, a they can't touch you. They can't interact with you. Yeah, you're literally on a pedestal. Yes. So it's just, like, that's so needed. And that human connection, that human authenticity of an MC, of being relatable, is also so important, too.
It benefits every show that we ever see an MC in. Yeah. It's the voice. It's the voice, the context for what you're seeing. And even if you, like, great example of you are always just really plugged in with the audience, but you are still that beautiful, exotic, gorgeous creature in their eyes. You know what I mean? And so they do need kind of a more normal, like, hey, whatever, to feel comfortable. Because you can only do so much. There's always an intimidation factor, I think, when a beautiful dancer wanders up to someone, even if they're warm and wonderful and, give a little wink or whatever. There's still an intimidation factor. But also, if you can put someone rando into the mix, whether it's like, hey, play this drinking game or whatever, people love it. I think that's why audience plants have always worked so well in shows forever, is because people, it's maybe a given that we're going to be great doing whatever thing we're doing on stage. Right. Duh, they're performers. But when it's somebody that you weren't expecting and suddenly they're thrust into the spotlight, it does this magical thing that really can't be replicated. It's really interesting what it does to the audience's mindset.
Because I feel like people who are not in this world sometimes look at us like we're idolized. Like, oh, you're a performer, you must make tons of money. That's it. And it's like, it's almost like, no, I'm just like you. Yes. I'm just like you, trying to make a buck, trying to enjoy what I do. I'm just like you. I had to learn a certain amount to get here. I had to learn a certain amount to do the job. I'm not too different from you.
No. There's still nights where I don't want to be here. Just like you don't want to go into your job.
Yeah. I may have just got some really crappy news. Yeah. And now all I want to do is go home and go to bed. Yeah. But guess what? I got a gig. I got shows to do. And so I'm going to do that. Yeah. And even still, like, there's some nights where that the beginning of the Pink show, we're like going into a lot of detail. You guys really need to go watch the show.
They're gonna be curious now.
But right, you better be. You need to go. But even in the beginning of our Les Femmes show, Pink show, we were told to make it more of like a cute little like fun mime, like, you know, be adorable. And there's been times where I've walked up to somebody with the sign that says, "Come join us at the cabaret," or "Le Cabaret." I think that's what the sign says. I'm sorry if it's not.
Yeah, I think that's it.
You know, when you stare at something so long and you're like, anyway, where like I pointed to the sign and they're like, "Oh no," and I will sit there and be like, and I'll like pretend to cry a little bit, and then I'll be really sad, or like I'll be like, "Okay, my heart," and then like who knows, and then by the time I get back on stage, I've seen them walk into the lounge, and I'm like, yes,
I manipulated them into being here.
But
way
I think
shame them, way to get them. That's really good. I wish I could see this.
It's ballsy, but like I think the human connection of the joke. Of like, "Oh, you broke my heart." Of course, like, they know I'm like.
We gotta go in and see her now, right?
You know what I mean?
We just did this for a minute. We gotta go in.
Right, but that human connection is also everything, and I love being able to look around and see them walk in, and I'm like,
got him.
You know,
got him.
But
that's
like,
so cute.
we're done up. We got the hair, we got the all the things, and we're in this gorgeous costume, so cute. We look like I shouldn't be talking to you. You know what I mean? Like, let's be real. A lot of people will treat us that way, like. But when you have somebody like that make that kind of fun little connection, a little bit of a joke, a little bit of that humanness, you're like, oh, okay.
It helps.
You know? Yeah.
But I also think it's necessary post-pandemic because while I wasn't in this industry, I was an audience member. And I have observed what I know all the performers who perform pre-pandemic already know, which is there's a massive difference between pre-pandemic audiences versus post-pandemic audiences.
Yes.
And so when you have this beautiful, you know, pink little French, you know, perfect dancer who's, you know, maybe not interacting with you, it reinforces the idea that, oh, there's a wall and this is a TV and I'm inconsequential, so I don't need to cheer, I don't need to clap. But the moment you're like, hey, you are relevant to me, audience member, and this is an energy exchange. I need you. And please come with me. Come with us. Be part of us. I think it sends that really good message as well. Because you got to do it. Otherwise, it's like we got so used to not taking in live performance for a few years. And I know in kind of globally that's suffered now too. That the basics of, hey, you're doing a great job. Woo! We've lost that. We've lost that.
I think I've talked about this with Miss Shanae. I can't remember what episode number that is, but Shanae Johnson. We talked about this a lot, and I think it also has to do with like during COVID, everybody was making video content online.
Yes.
And even still, obviously, it's a huge movement. Everybody wants to do it. Everybody is doing it. And I think that seeing people expose their daily lives has made us also search as live audience members for that authenticity or that vulnerability in many words. Where is the part that I can connect to you? Because we're now so trained to search for that in the influencers that we follow, in the videos we see online. We have been trained to search for that authenticity of that vulnerability of seeing someone's quote unquote real life. And I use quotes because there's been so many scandals about obviously people lying and stuff, but you know, that's kind of what we've been trained for, and I think that's what now our audience members are looking for, is that where do I relate to you? Because that's all we're looking for now is relatability.
Yeah, we're all looking for connection.
Yeah.
You're right, we've lost that a lot. Which is why we need more live entertainment back, because that really is one of those opportunities to reinforce what we need so badly in the world.
And I think some shows like I call them 2D or 2D, 3D shows where it's like you're on a stage, I'm in the audience. I say aren't as big anymore. I could have no idea what I'm talking about. I could not have a clue, and I could have it all wrong, but they don't seem to be popping anymore.
I mean, it's true. You look around the 1,000-seat, showrooms. They've kind of it hasn't gone as well over the last 5 years as like the supper club model.
Yep. Mayfair doing incredible.
Perfect example.
So interactive. I haven't gone to seen it. But I mean, other than the videos I've seen and how it's all been described to me.
Yes.
So interactive.
Yes. Oh my gosh, you're doing like I think it's the cha-cha, but I'm calling it the bunny hop in my head. Through the tables at some point, you can join the performers doing it, and everyone who didn't participate that's still sitting at the table is like, to everybody who's going by.
Super Freako.
Yes.
Have you been to Super Freako? They do
haven't.
They do the acts every. I don't know if it's every like hour on the hour. I don't know how they time it out, but they do different audience interaction acts as you're eating dinner.
Incredible. Delilah.
Yep.
This model works for a reason. For a few reasons. I think people feel like they're part of the show, but then also I think, unfortunately, nobody's really looking for experimental experiences if it doesn't have something familiar in it for them. So that's why the food and beverage model works so well with performing, which is really what Vegas was built on. Side note, you know what I mean? Is there were always free entertainment opportunities to take in while you were having a drink or a dinner. That's gone, a little bit by the wayside over the last few years, but it's always worked for a reason.
It's always dinner. I feel like a dinner theater is the oldest. I mean, I don't know all the history.
We're going to make up history right now.
Right?
Yes, it is the oldest form of entertainment.
But you've heard about it for how many years now? It's not new. It's not new.
No.
It is not new.
No.
A dinner and a show. Put the two together and you got a masterpiece. Because it's like, it's so, I don't know. This is like a complete side tangent to what I don't know, but I love it. Anyway, but this is the point in the podcast where I ask you what your funniest story is as a performer.
Easy. And you might have been here for this because it is a late cabaret story. So I was still just swinging the show at this point. And so I was still very much in that I'm in my head part. We're not having fun. We're not performing. We're not thinking on our feet at this point. We're just in survival mode and don't mess up mode, right? And so, of course, we're in these giant can skirts with all of these ruffles. And I was sitting backstage waiting to go on for our final number. And I came out, and the audience was just, like, thrilled to see me. They were smiling. They were, like, whispering to each other. They were like, and I was like, oh, my God, they love me. And so I started our last number, little party, and I'm feeling fierce. I'm feeling good, and they are loving this. They are loving this. And as I start doing the choreo with the girls, I'm feeling something kind of brushing against my shins. And then it dropped. And I briefly looked down, and it was my, like, normie freaking bra that I wore in.
I had a feeling it was going to be the story.
Did you? Yes. Because it really is just, it really was such a moment. And so it turns out that I just had this bra swinging from my can skirt because the hook had just kind of just perfectly gotten onto the ruffle. And, Gabby quickly just kind of danced and picked it up off stage. I mean, me now, when you get comfortable, it keeps me up in the middle of the night that I didn't pick it up and just like swang it around or something. But, I was not in that place. I was so dead set on just not messing up and being so serious that I didn't even know it happened. The audience did not, in fact, just love me for me. They loved me for my ugly ass street bra that was just flopping in the wind.
that is a confirmation that we are just like you.
We are just like you. They're just like us. I love
We
that
create the
section.
allure that we're all put together, and we got it. We got it on lock.
No.
No,
In the back, we're getting our clothes ready to go, and we're just not double checking our stuff sometimes.
Oh my gosh, I absolutely love that. I had one more question for you. Let's see if it'll come back to me. Here it is. If you could tell anybody who wants to start a new career path, such as join the entertainment industry, what would you tell them?
I would say what I said earlier, which is don't pre-cast yourself or type yourself out of any opportunities. You don't know what they're thinking. The only way you're going to know is if you go for it. And you have two options. You can wonder forever, or you can take the risk. Which one is going to kill you more? And I think the answer is obvious if it's really in your heart.
Amen.
Amen.
Zelda, I absolutely love and adore you. If you guys haven't figured it out already, or if you did not know, absolutely love and adore you. You are such an amazing example of everything that's possible in this world. No matter what state it's in, literally, world shut down and you made it happen. And no matter whether you got the encouragement growing up or not, you still pursued it and you still went for it, even though you grew up believing you couldn't. And I think that's incredible.
Thank you so much for having me. This is so important, what you're doing. I think it's the connective tissue that we needed. And I think that as you continue this project, we will grow as a community and outside of this community too, because these are the things that we don't get to talk about on the gig.
Facts.
These are the things we don't get to know about one another, right? Or other facets of the performing industry.
Right. Like, I'd love to sit down and talk to you, but, like, we have the gig, we have to perform, and then I have jobs, and I have to work, and I have to make money, and then we don't have time to hang out. And I'm talking about Zelda and I's relationship, obviously.
And that's it. That's it. Exactly. So then we get microphones in front of us, and then good. Cool. We did it.
Oh, my gosh. I love it. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Before the Curtain. Please be sure to rate, review, and subscribe wherever it is you listen to the podcast. We love to hear your virtual round of applause. If you know of a production or artist that deserves to have their story told, send us an email or message us on Instagram by clicking the link in the description.